Hi, everybody, and thanks for the awesome intro. This is going to be entertaining, I promise. So this is me when I was little. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about why I'm giving this talk. I've been kind of assigned to different roles since I was little. I've always been kind of a tomboy, and I've always loved games. And I've always been told that, hey, you're a girl, you're not supposed to like games, you know? Especially even by my grandmother. I used to carry this around with me everywhere I went when I was like 4 years old. Like everywhere, I wore the buttons off. I don't know if anybody remembers this. Yeah, Raymond remembers. See, I figured. I'm old. So fortunately for me, I had my mother and my aunties. They're all Hawaiian. And they're very, very strong ladies. And my mom pretty much said, you know what? You can shut up and let her do whatever she wants. So she was kind of my biggest and foremost supporter. She got kicked out of the PTA because of it, actually. Yeah, they said, those games, they're taking up a lot of our time, and I think they're of the devil. They actually said this. And my mom said, well, actually, she's using her brain. She's staying home, and she uses math and other sorts of skills, so I think she's going to keep doing it. And so they sent her an email, and they said, oh, sorry, they didn't have email then. They sent her a letter that said, so you don't have to come back. So I love my mom. So this is EverQuest. So this is my rating guild. I had 300 people in it. If you ever want to be a CEO, this is a great way to train. I had Dragon Kill points. I did conflict resolution. I did all the things I do today, except I just do it a lot more. And people thought I was a dude, actually, for a long time, even though my character's name was female. And I was clearly speaking kind of female-ish, I think. People just assumed because I could run this huge organization and raid that I was a guy until I met a couple of them in real life. So my first job really was high heat baseball, but after that I worked on a really hardcore FPS tank game called Uprising, and I don't even know if any of you have heard of it because it was so hard you had to crack it to actually finish the game. And that's when I first started really experiencing stereotypes in my job. I would actually say, okay, I've been playing this game for 4 months and I can't play it anymore. And the guy said, yeah, well, you're just a girl, Terry. I mean, no offense or anything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, offense taken. But anyway, when I got out of that job, I actually got to work on Psychonauts, which was amazing. And on that team, I didn't experience any gender stereotypes or differences at all, whether I was female or a male. I mean, everybody was just kind of working on their own merits, and it was a really nice, refreshing experience. In addition, Psychonauts was really for everyone. It was my first glimpse of hope that we could make games that everyone could enjoy. Because I love hardcore games. I've always been into them, but I would really like to see something that my mom or my sisters would enjoy that were a little less, difficult. So after that, the whole farm town, Farmville, farm everything started happening. And people were like, oh my God, you can make money off women. Wow. And they were like shocked. And I'm like, oh, yes, finally. But that led to a lot of people going up to me going, Terry, I noticed you're female. And I'm like, well, thank you for noticing. What do all women want? And I just look at them and go, I don't even know what I want, dude. It's like impossible for me to tell you what all women want because we all want different things. And like all of us. This is the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but it's pretty funny. And even poor Mel couldn't figure out what women want, and he could hear into their heads, okay? So don't even try. But there are a lot of assumptions about what women want that are going on in the game industry today. And this is kind of what I experience all the time. I'm like, yeah, I play games. I'm like, oh, you mean like that? Bunny, fluffy, rainbows, unicorns. Lots of planting and gardening. And that's really not me at all. Actually, that's more like me. I play League of Legends. I manage an esport team for League of Legends. I play a lot of hardcore games, but also casual games. But it's really important to know that just don't figure out. If you know something, go and find it out. Go and do a lot of research because you don't want to fall into the stereotype bandwagon, which, that's what I kind of end up being in a lot of the time. And that's the face I make when I feel like I'm in the stereotype bandwagon right there. Not a happy face. So one of the things I thought was really important when I started getting ready for this talk is realizing that there's two big differences between men and women. Actually, there's a lot of differences. But for games, one of the things I noticed the most was that when I looked up age demographic and men for games, nothing came up in Google search. Nothing. So then I started thinking about it a little more. I'm like, wow, actually a lot of my guy friends play Call of Duty with their sons on the couch. And I'm trying to think, well, are any of my female friends, my sisters, for instance, they sit on the couch and play games with their daughters? And the answer is kind of no. It's kind of more work for them. And that's kind of when I started getting on this whole path of really thinking about the three important points in a woman's life. There's a lot of mythology in the world that symbolize this. And when I started doing more and more research, I realized there's a lot of cultures and a lot of different times, and even George R.R. Martin that talk about the triple goddess aspect. The mother, the maiden, and the crone in George R.R. Martin, or the kind of a more learning figure, a mother figure, and the young woman. So then I was like, you know what? That's true, actually. There is a lot of stuff going on in my life. And then I just sat and realized, and this seems kind of strange, but I realized, you're right. I don't want anything like what I wanted when I was 12 is totally different than what I want now that I'm 40. So here's the hormone pantheon. And that's really what it's about. What I've kind of discovered is you're full of a lot of hormones, and they make you feel strange things. And they put me in strange situations on top of that. So you have your estrogen, your progesterone, and your testosterone, which those are the major things that kind of flow into your body. And then you have your minors, which are your oxytocin, your cortisol, and your vasopressin. And I'll go over those as I kind of go through the goddess aspects. But if you want to learn a lot more about that, there's other folks that are kind of studying this in depth. Like Nicole Lazario, she gave a talk about this kind of stuff earlier on. I'd totally look her up. If you're looking for someone with lots more brain power than me, and you want to know a lot more about what your hormones do, look up Nicole's stuff. Just to prove this point, this is a man's life cycle. So I looked up again on Google. I said, what is a guy's month-to-month hormone level? And there was nothing. There was only men's lifetime cycle, and that's for their testosterone. And it goes down really, really slowly and just gradually over time until they're older. So they're pretty steady. This is a woman's cycle month to month, okay? It is madness. It is madness all the time. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the whole concept of PMS, actually only 10% of women in the entire world actually get a really, really severe reaction. And it's because they don't have estrogen. So they're actually going through a withdrawal of estrogen, and that's when you experience these kind of oh my God, because estrogen actually calms you down, and so does progesterone. So we're going back to these triple goddesses again. Oops. All right, so this is the clotho aspect, so adolescence. And I try to think back about what it was like when I was an adolescent, and I realized, it was pretty darn turbulent. You're changing a lot. I mean, you're going from being a child, then suddenly these weird things are happening to you, like fat deposits and hips, and your boys are noticing you. I was a late bloomer, so suddenly all my guy friends who I ran around and beat things up with, they started going, yeah, so Terry. And I'm like, oh, okay, not ready for this. But that's when adolescence started happening. And so you start being kind of inundated by this high estrogen level, which is causing these changes. Also, girls mature 2 years sooner than boys. Big surprise, boys. No, no. But anyway. So that's, again, I started noticing on my guy friends really kind of starting to pay attention to me a little more than I was comfortable with earlier on. Also, they tend to avoid aggression because you start getting these social ties that are very important to you. There was a study not too long ago about carryovers from a caveman brain. And women typically tend to stay in the village and take care of the kids, while the guys would roam out for long periods of time and find food. Well, you kind of survived by your relationships. If you're kicked out of the tribe, you usually died. So there's a lot of people that say that there's some carryovers from that to today. So, it's really difficult for women to lose relationships. So, for me, it's it feels like I'm dying. I mean, quite literally. And really, I'm like, that guy was a jerk. I don't even understand why I'm feeling this way. I really don't. And it's just something from inside basically telling me, hey, you actually need this. It's well, no, I don't as a modern woman, but really it's your hormones kind of like giving you a sucker punch. So this is a stereotype of a teenage girl. She's really laughy, giggly, sweet. This is what's happening inside, kind of. It's really difficult as a teenage girl. Again, you're getting all these changes. You're not sure who you want to be. There's the typical games out there that kind of cater to a girl wanting to feel her best, look her best, and try to hide this sort of feeling of, yeah, I'm pretty, I'm fine. But in reality, she's feeling really turbulent inside. But I would like to see more games that kind of don't focus on just the outside, but also focus on the inside. So this is a little game that I made for a virtual world called V-Side. And they were looking for some sort of game to attract the girls to actually interacting with the boys, because they realized that all the kids wanted to do was hook up online. Big surprise there. So I tried to figure out a way to make some social glue situation. So what I did was I added a job, which was a hairdresser to start, where the girls could buy props. Well, the girls and the boys could buy props, and they could basically do someone's hair who would come into their salon, and they get paid for it. So it's kind of a way for them to kind of discover what it would be like to have your own business, to kind of like, have customers come in that you take care of. And it was incredibly popular. It tripled our virtual goods sales in a month. And it was great because the boys would typically come in, they sit down, they talk to the girls, they'd have an excuse to do it. The girls would do their hair would wear off over about 3 days, and then they come in and find the same girl. And it just reinforced this kind of social bonding that they were looking for, so they could feel safe, and they'd have sort of this icebreaker to help accomplish that. So it'd be nice to see more things for teenage girls where they could explore the world at large and kind of figure out who they want to be and who they are, empower them that way, instead of just the outside dress-up stuff. So this is Lechisis, and she is early to mid-adulthood, so really the mother kind of thing. So the reality is our bodies are getting ready to have children. Whether we want them or not, I don't have children, but my body is doing funky things in expectation to having children. Although the reality is by 44, 82% of women have given birth already, and that's a large, significant portion of the population. 66% of these women have careers also. So I don't know if any of you have siblings, sisters, you have your own children. You know it is freaking hard raising children. It's ridiculous. And then they have this job on top of that. And then on top of that, your brain shrinks 4% during pregnancy. How messed up is that? Your brain actually shrinks during pregnancy. Yeah. That's what the pregnancy brain, it's actually real. Now, the good news is it goes back to normal size when you've given birth and everything, but your body is pretty much pumping you full of progesterone and all sorts of feel-good chemicals, so you don't notice that your body is getting wrecked. You're like, it's like, no, nature's like, it's okay, it's all right, don't worry about that, don't worry about the stretch marks, it's fine. Anyway, this accounts for a lot of stress. That's where I'm going with this. It accounts for tons and tons of stress. On top of that, women produce double the cortisol than men do. And we're also double at risk for depression, and we're 4 times more prone to anxiety than men on top of that. So all this stuff is going on. So this is a motherhood stereotype, right? I mean, I'm always getting people coming up to me, so when you're having kids? Never. No. But, there's this stereotype kind of like pressed on us. And a lot of women are very happy with their children, my sisters included. But this is kind of the reality, at least for my sisters. This is what it looks like at their house generally. And so on top of all this career stress and mother stress, you got madness going on. So, I mean, in game experiences, do they want to go and do Call of Duty and like get super more stressed on top of that? Yeah, generally not. So this is what it feels like when they get a bill in the mail or anything threatening the home or anything threatening them or their family. It feels like a saber-toothed tiger. See, if a guy gets assaulted by a saber-toothed tiger, he's like, shit, testosterone, and start, running away, and like all these hormones happen to get him away from the saber-toothed tiger. For women, like I said, it's a bill in the mail and you're stressed. So my solution is something to relax and calm me down, like this digital glass of wine situation, where you're just giving me something that I can look at and just relax, calm that cortisol down, and just let me think about happy things, go to my happy place. And that's what I found when I worked on Gardens of Time. So Gardens of Time had quite a large range of women, typically older and more mature. I also worked on Sorority Life, which had the younger kind of demographic as well. But what I found the difference between Sorority Life and Gardens of Time, the biggest difference was that women want it to be simple. It's not that they're not capable of figuring it out. Thanks. It's more to the point that they just want something simple they get into and relax with. And we had this really cool loop, isometric objects to reputation to hidden object scenes, back to isometric objects, which was great for monetization. But we ended up with boar gardens because everything was based on a point system. And then an interesting thing about this game was that initially the designers made it very, very simple, and then they put in a bunch of complex stuff because they figured, well, this is never going to be interesting. This is going to be really boring. And they actually had to rip it all out when they shipped it because the women wanted it simple. So keep it simple. So we basically fixed this problem by adding a way to upgrade pretty items, because at the end of the day, what the reality was on the team was that the women just wanted a pretty garden. They wanted to take their pretty stuff and put it where they wanted to put it without being restricted by points. So I think really at the end of the day, the important thing is to realize what's going on in these women's lives and give them something that's going to relax them, to give them something a little bit outside the box, something that is going to make them think, hey, everything's going to be okay, actually. I just need to get through this day. So this is the third aspect, is atropos, late adulthood. This is what our society doesn't really like to talk about, is when we get older. We're kind of, especially in the US, we're a society that idolizes younger women, being young, pretty, cute. It's difficult going into this stage. But the good thing is that your estrogen is kind of declining and you're actually getting kind of in sync with your testosterone levels, which makes you a little more steady in the emotion kind of department. Your mommy hormones are receding. By the way, your mommy hormones, they reenact themselves every time you touch your child. So you get this bonding situation happening. So when your kid goes away to college, you're like, yeah, no more bonding. So you start thinking about things you want to do for yourself. And actually, divorce has doubled in women over 50 the last few years. And that's primarily because, women are like, hey, I can do my own thing. And they're just like not as caught up in having to have these social bonds and ties that kind of define their lives in middle age. So the stereotype for grandma, yeah, making cookies and all that. And this is kind of the reality, actually. This is what my mom's like. I know that for a fact. And my grandmother, they actually, my mom's very, she's going out and doing the things she always wanted to do when she was kind of not able to with the family and everything. She's got more financial independence, and she can just get out there and do it. So in Gardens of Time, the older women, they typically like the idea of feeling like they're traveling, that there's adventure and learning associated with the game. They wanted to feel like they were actually in China because that's where they actually wanted to go. So if you want diversity in your game, the biggest thing you can do, get a diverse team. Half my team are women, actually a little like more than half, and the other half are men. And really, we've come into several situations in our game, which is Force of Elements. So it looks pretty hardcore, right? And the thing of it is that my mother played the game, and she's like, wow, you finally made a game for me. And I'm like, wait a second, Mom. This is supposed to be a mid-core game, But really, so here's the situation. Having a really diverse team is important because, okay, so this is one of our characters, Saul. So the women on the team, they're like, oh, yeah, he's totally hot. Like, we like him. He's awesome. Let's just do that. And then the guys are like, I don't know. There's something about him. He's kind of mushy. Like, he just doesn't seem very macho. So we revisited Saul, and then this is what he ended up being. And both sides of the team really, really loved his character design. And we keep having situations like that all throughout our development cycle, is that having men and women on the team with equal say, you end up getting a game that's basically inviting a lot of people into it. So I would like to see more of that. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening to me.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah, awesome. The question person has a question for me.
How does your theory work with trans women?
Oh, trans women. Actually, I've worked with several trans women, and it's interesting because what I've noticed for them is that they're kind of on the way over to the other side. And it's difficult for them because and sometimes they feel like I'm trying to relate to women, right? But at the same time, they still have some of the hormone stuff going on that kind of defines them as men. So we do our best to kind of help them. And I'm always open with my trans friends. They always ask me questions about things, like what it's like for here, what it's like for that. And I think it's just important to, you know, determine what role they want to be in, and then just basically accept them for that role and move on. But yeah, I mean, it's really about making the transition for them. So, but you know, interesting enough, one thing about trans, a fact I picked up was that people who are trans or actually gay, they typically, the parts in their brain, which are generally, so for instance, for women, I think it's your hippocampus is larger, the centers for emotion. It's kind of the same in gay and people who tend to be trans. They have brains similar to the other gender that they're kind of moving towards, which is a really interesting study. I mean, I'm not sure how factual it is because studies can be studies, but it was interesting.
We had a question on this side.
I'm Jane Katz, and we had games for girls for many years, and now we have games for women. And congratulations on taking the whole range of women, because I think you're really right on. I remember for myself that in terms of games, when I had motherhood and business, I wanted 10 minutes of Club Med. You know, I just wanted to get away to a nice, pretty place for a while, and you really picked that up. You know, I didn't want any stress. I just wanted to go somewhere. And I think that was why Myst was very popular with women. Mm-hmm. There wasn't fighting. I don't want to go into a tactical battle, but I could be somewhere. So you've got a lot of those things. You've got travel, and you've got moving simple things. I think you did a great job, and I'd like to talk to you after.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Anyone else? We have like a lot of time. You will finish early. So.
Oh, sorry. I know I talk kind of fast. I'm nervous.
That's fine. That way.
My second talk ever.
Okay, so one of the things that has kind of bugged me about mainstream video games, essentially, is that whenever a woman is put into it, they're very sexualized. And it's not very practical in any means to that game. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of make, instead of doing them as a support role or something you need to protect, have them inside the game be actually the main source of help and or badassery, essentially. And I want to know your views on that as well. Like, when it comes to how in mainstream or mobile or indie, where generally the male is the main heroic type, how would you feel about if it was just essentially gender swap, but it still had the same kind of fighting or violence aspect as well?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm working on a theory right now, actually, because I mentioned I had an e-sport team that I work with. And I'm trying really desperately to get a female player in pro because there isn't one right now. So I did find one female player. Her name's Maria. She is having a really hard time, mainly because there's a lot of stereotypes in games and everything like that. But she's a support role. And most of the females that I play support in League of Legends. And I think that part of it is that, and also in I was a huge guild leader in EverQuest, and I played a druid and a healer. I was part of I did the healing circle, and I led the raid at the same time. And I think part of that, again, is, like, I think it's part of, like, who we are. It's kind of makeup. What I would like to see is that if I want to be a support, it's okay. That's not a, because I think a lot of the guys I play with, they see that as being a lesser role, and it's not. It's actually it's like a really important role, and it's a role that you would die without, right? And it would be nice to see more focus put on a role like that. Like, hey, I get an award, I get an achievement because I saved your life 10 times, right? Like something to make me feel better, even though I just love saving people. I'm like, yeah, that's like. So I was a friend who works at Riot. I was trying to explain to him what it feels like to be a support, because they're trying to move supports away from being a support and to being more active. Like, basically, I can kill stuff just like the AD carry can. You know, it's like, no, that's not what it's about for me. I don't want to kill things like the AD carry. I want to, like, not be as stressed out, and I want the ability to be able to, you know, like, do my job better. You know, and like have people notice and appreciate me. Like, I want to be appreciated. You know, so and another thing about the sexualization, that's another thing that's kind of interesting. I talk to my girlfriends about it all the time, is we like to be sexy, actually. That's the thing. We like to actually be sexy and look pretty and have these idolizations of game characters that, I mean, that's key up there, right? That's one of our characters. She's beautiful, she's sexy, right? But there's something about her, I mean, she's got a full figure, right? She's got like flowing robes, almost like a Raphael-like kind of look to her. She's ethnic looking, right? I mean, she's sexy, but she's powerful looking, right? Like she's in control. And I think that, again, if you have a diverse team, it's going to help you a lot finding that really razor's edge between sexy and powerful. All right, ask me anything. Seriously, it's like AMA. You can ask me anything about chick stuff.
One more question. So, what do you think it'll take for the perception of like support roles and stuff to be seen as like important and for it to be more valued? Like, what do you think we could do?
I think that starts with the developers, because I look on the boards a lot and I talk to the developers, and they just still they have this perception, and if they have this perception, it's gonna be passed on to the players. And I think that if we're appreciated, so here's a good tidbit for you. It's very recent. And Brenda Romero actually posted about this on the AMA, not AMBA, but it was basically one of the Korean leagues for esports. They basically said that women couldn't compete. That was really not okay. They said that, we're going to do a women's league, though. It's like, what, all 10 that are playing, you know? But we basically, a whole bunch of people got together, and we all said, hey, you know what, this isn't okay. Like, you are the developer, and hey, what's going on with this? Actually, it was Hearthstone. It wasn't, it was in a league with League of Legends, but it was for Hearthstone, which is a card game, which has no twitch to it whatsoever. There is no difference and no reason why a woman cannot compete with Hearthstone. It was ridiculous. So we put a lot of pressure on them, and they actually, Blizzard, to their credit, came forward and said, hey, you know what, actually that's not okay. You should include women just like men. And they changed the rules. So we need more of that,
All right.
Thanks, everybody.